UN today, one of the preoccupations that we had was the ousting of the Prime Minister of Haiti. And since I've been in the UN, one focus that we've had is how do we get peace to Haiti, the people who, through one calamity and tragedy after another, it's still the losers. And that's why today is a valuable opportunity to discuss the relevance of the UN and the multilateral system in today's divided and really challenging world. And many will ask the question, what is the use? Well, for me today, discussing this, especially with young people who will inherit our world, and yes, also the mistakes that my generation has made, Brooklyn College has always been a global village, and it's been uniting students and faculty from around the world. And it includes a number of immigrant and first-generation college students. You understand the importance of building bridges across cultures, looking beyond differences, and showing us all that diversity is the incredible richness that benefits us all. And seeing that richness, seeing that wealth and not the weakness is one of the challenges that we have today. And I know that many of you carry the spirit with you wherever you go. That same spirit breathes life into the United Nations and our global mission. If we live in a global village, as we have all said of recent, then the United Nations is our global town hall. So what I believe is that this is the one place that we can all have visibility of everyone. Our voices are all equal in the UN, but not necessarily the muscle that we have at the table. It does make it our town hall. In a place where nations of the world, they can come, discuss, debate, develop solutions to common problems, and to do so by common commitments of international law, human rights, and of course the UN Charter. Founded after the destruction and division of the Second World War, the UN represents a bold but simple idea: the best way to prevent conflict and ensure a better future for all people who are working together as one global family. The spirit of global problem solving is now more important than ever, and we certainly know that our charter has been challenged over the last few years. Our village is beset by problems, and it's no country alone or group of people can solve them by themselves. We face a number of rising conflicts from the Middle East and Gaza, Lebanon, to Sudan, to Ukraine, Myanmar, and many other places. These conflicts have caused us massive human suffering and continue to do so, displacing millions, destroying homes and vital infrastructure, disrupting economies and draining resources that could otherwise go towards fighting poverty, hunger, and other huge challenges. 120 million people today displaced, the highest number that we've had on record. And meanwhile, we see poverty, hunger, and inequality, harsh realities faced by millions around the world. The Sustainable Development Goals, gathered almost 8 years ago, are a roadmap to address these challenges, and it was a considerable paradigm shift from where we were before, and hope to achieve a better future in 15 years by 2030. All of these are at risk of failure. Less than 1/5 of the goals are currently on track, 600 million people still lacking electricity, and 2.6 billion remaining offline. Girls and women still being denied their rights, a shocking failure affecting half of humanity. We see today in one of our countries in Iraq that they are putting through legislation that would make it okay for a child to be married at 9 years old. That is not probably not an English word for that, but anyway, as we say, this is some of the things that we face every day, that instead of moving forward on girls and women's rights, we are taking huge steps backwards. Divisions and mistrust are relentlessly fueled by mis and disinformation, and supercharged by technology that's rife with potential, but it also has pitfalls that have real-world consequences. And in climate change, humanity confronts nothing less than an exponential planetary emergency, with the hottest year on record again, as well as droughts, floods, rising seas, melting glaciers, and other destructive impacts. Yet today we are in Baku, in Azerbaijan, a fossil fuel country, trying to get the Paris Agreement back on track. Add to this the list of destruction that scourge of air pollution, killing 7 million people every year, land and habitat degradation, 19 to 23 million tons of plastic waste leaking into our rivers, our lakes, our seas. Nature is humanity's best friend, but through our actions and neglect, we've often treated it like our worst enemy. In fact, we have picked a fight with nature and it is certainly fighting back. Every one of these challenges that I mentioned today have global implications for every one of us, every one of our countries. And every country in one way or another is impacted. We learned this lesson all too well through the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID was a public health disaster in every country, but also a driver of an economic downturn from which many countries are still reeling. It was yet another reminder that borderless problems require global solutions. But the systems and structures we've built over the decades to manage the global economy, global security, global health, and global collaboration are now outdated. They're no longer fit for purpose. They represent the power structures of the post-World War II era. They don't properly reflect the rising powers and influences of certain countries and regions. They also fail to recognize realities we take for granted today: globalization, digital technology, artificial intelligence, and a multipolar world that is far less linear and more complicated than we saw during the Cold War. We cannot fight, and I think we all agree, 21st century problems with 20th century tools. Recognizing this, in the UN, we did host the Summit of the Future in September. Against all odds and the really tense global political challenges that we faced, we did gather the countries together. Over 130 countries did come along, and we were discussing the UN at 75 and so what. And that came out of a 2-year discussion with member states in trying to understand what it was that we needed to do to respond to a world in a pact for the future. A blueprint that would show and strengthen global systems and institutions to meet today's huge challenges and make them more representative of today's world and not that of 1945. The pact is incredibly wide-ranging, and there are 4 areas that it chose to focus on. And I think here it was important to see that we were building on resolutions that we've had and not just throwing the baby out the bathwater. And today, these 4 areas that I'd like to outline for you forged in a pact that we thought was impossible. In fact, right into the last minute, we took into the General Assembly a pact that was not agreed. And standing against that pact were a couple of countries, but it was Africa that stood tall and said that this was not going to happen in a world today where so many people needed it. This was not going to be a pact of a few words that people were wordsmithing. It was going to be about people, billions of people. This pact was supposed to, and we hope it does, reignite multilateralism, set our world on a better and more peaceful and sustainable path. The first part of this pact was actually to honor the SDGs, to say that we made a promise to people to have the SDGs by 2030, and we need to complete that. The second was peace. From the start, peace has been the raison d'etre of the United Nations. Around the world, peace and trust are in short supply. The Pact for the Future aims to strengthen the architecture for peace in important ways. For example, it includes the first multilateral agreement on nuclear disarmament in more than a decade, as well as efforts to address the weaponization of outer space and the use of lethal autonomous weapons. It includes a focus on investing in development as a means to prevent fragility, conflict, violence, and destabilization. And it includes a commitment to explore expanding the UN Security Council by addressing the underrepresentation of Africa, the Asia-Pacific, Latin America, and the Caribbean. The world's preeminent peace and security body, we all know, must reflect the world of today, not the world of 8 decades ago. The second was climate. The Pact confirms the need to keep global temperatures rise above 1.5 degrees pre-industrial levels and to transition away from fossil fuels in a just transition to energy systems to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. By next year, we're asking the world that every country must produce new plans that are economy-wise to try to achieve this. But many developing countries need support. Developed countries must keep their promises to double adaptation finance, helping developing countries to reduce emissions and accelerate the renewable energy revolution. Truth be told, the G20 plus about 15 countries that are 87% of the emissions. So we don't need the 193 countries of the UN, just target 35. and we should get closer to it. We need to see significant contributions to the new loss and damage fund to help developing economies adapt to the damage that has already been done. And in this effort, we can draw inspiration from other key planet protecting successes, including the 2022 Global Biodiversity Framework and the international treaty underway to end plastic pollution. It is time, we hope, to discuss and stop destruction. The third is technology. And technology, all countries need and deserve to benefit from the technological breakthroughs that we've had. Artificial intelligence and quantum computing are perfect examples. At the UN, we believe that AI and quantum computing is a powerful problem-solving tool from which all governments, companies, and people could benefit. It holds enormous progress to help countries develop and get the SDGs back on track. But AI also holds enormous risks that must be managed. Similarly, we see that with quantum computing, enabling us to solve problems that are currently beyond the reach of our computers. From finance to security and healthcare, quantum computing we know can revolutionize industries. At the same time, all pose great risk to deepen the digital divide that is existing between developed and developing countries, and does have the direct environmental effects due to high energy consumptions. Therefore, we need to establish the standards that ensure an ethical use and reduce the environmental impact. In September, what we did adopt was a global digital compact. A compact outlining how governments, tech companies, academia, civil society can work together, ensuring new technologies benefit everyone while trying to manage those risks. It includes the first truly universal agreement on international governance of AI, giving every country a seat at the AI table. It is a new challenge, and we all need our hands on deck for this. In particular, we do need students and young people like yourselves to help us get an inclusive AI into the hands of innovators around the world, helping solve global problems. I'd like to encourage us all to think about this as you consider your career paths. This is the new world of technology, and for sure we're never going to be the same again. I often liken it to when we had from the horse and cart to the combustion engine. This is just that moment. But I also often think that with the UN and the challenges that we have today, we are in another League of Nations moment. We do need solutions, we need creativity, we need courage, and we know that both are in short supply. The fourth was finance. Governments are needing to dramatically have higher levels of financing to invest in systems of people, from health care, education, clean water, nutrition, the basic rights that everyone in this room has. We know that investing in development is key to our stable, peaceful societies. In Rwanda and Colombia, for example, we've seen that targeted development initiatives not only revitalized economies, but they also brought divided communities together with common purpose. The sources of those investments are foundational to any economy. Taxes form the basis of social contract between governments and their citizens, and trade provides governments with critical sources of foreign currency. But in today's global economy, investments are needed, and they're just simply too great to be met. It is estimated that developing countries face a yawning gap, we've said in the UN, of anywhere from $3 to $5 trillion a year to achieve the SDGs. And to make matters worse, many of our countries are in the grip of a debt crisis, forcing many of our countries to devote their limited resources to repaying old loans. In many cases, having to shelve their investments that they make in health and in education. We see more than half of our world's poorest countries in or high risk of debt distress, and to illustrate this, countries spend continuously more just to the debt servicing than on critical infrastructure combined. And when they turn to the MDBs, our multilateral development banks, like the World Bank and the IMF for assistance, they're not even getting the level of support that they need, nor are they even represented at the decision-making table. This leaves developing countries without a safety net or a voice. To fix this, the Pact for the Future called for reforming the international financial architecture. It includes commitments to closing the financing gap of the SDGs by dramatically expanding the lending capacity of multilateral development banks, and they are so small and the capitalization they need today perhaps out of reach of the political decision-making that has to be made. Reforming the sovereign debt architecture so that countries can borrow with confidence, and to expand the use of special drawing rights to assist countries during global shocks. It also called for far greater representation on our executive boards of global financial institutions. We do need and deserve a seat at the table. Next year's conference, and it's a big one for it comes every decade, Financing for Development, and the Summit of Social Development are two milestones to carry these efforts forward. The Pact for the Future provides us with guidance for the years to come on these topics, and also includes a declaration on future generations, helping us to be mindful of the decisions we take today for those that are yet unborn. The declaration also aims to correct a historic injustice, the lack of opportunity for young people like yourselves to participate in the decisions that have affected you. It echoes the timeless call of the UN Charter to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, committing governments for the first time to taking interest in our descendants into account in decisions we take today. Whatever path we're all choosing in the coming years, and with the life cycle from when we begin to when we end, lengthening with better health, I would urge all of us to make our voices heard whenever and whichever way we can. The world we're inheriting is far from perfect, but as your school motto reminds us, nothing without great effort. By lending your ideas and hands and hearts to the task and looking far beyond the borders of communities and countries, I know that everyone here can and will make a difference. I look forward to the conversation we're going to have. This is great words that my wonderful team wrote, but I hope that we'll get more out of the question and answer that we have. Every day we are facing a world where the reality is pretty miserable today, but the ambitions of the Charter are still great. They still bring humanity together on a planet that's livable. Our job is really every day to try to close that gap. Sometimes we do well, sometimes we don't. But without that global family and that town hall, it makes it very difficult for us to have visibility over those who really need that support today. And there are many questions up for grabs as we try to comprehend what is it that is happening to us in a world where, frankly, we're just wondering where the leadership has gone. We see a lot of power where there is no leadership, and a lot of leadership where there's the power. Where is the power? And this is, I would say, we are saying, not for want of ticking the box, but many of the challenges that we face today are man-made. If it's climate, if it's the conflicts we have, the injustices that we see. And I will underscore the word man, because if you have women in those positions, you will not be in a position today. And it's not ticking the box. If you really see the peace negotiations that we have, full of men, where seed of war is born, women want peace in the home, in the field. They carry the burden of these conflicts, and yet we do not see that you need both in the room so that we can find a pathway to peace and prosperity, and we can all live on this planet, country by country, village by village, community by community. And I think the time is now for hearing younger voices. The fire in your belly needs to be heard. It is what we need to target towards decision making. To getting out, I know today is all about new technologies, and my kids try to tell me about that, and I've got 6 of them, so I can tell you the divergent views in my family. But it's important to protect that voice, and however we get it out, to try to shape decisions that need to be taken today to really close that gap between the reality